What is the most outlandish, hilarious, surprising thing you have ever seen go down in public? Was having a new exhaust put onto my Subaru by a small specialty shop in Buffalo, New York. We dropped it off and then said we would just go walk around for a couple hours till it was done. Staff advised us not to as it was a rough area. We were 19 and from Canada. What's the worst that could happen? After walking through a couple blocks of burnt out hoses and straight out of the movies for us ghetto W decided to turn around and get back to the shop as soon as possible. We walk around a corner only to see a group of 5 large, fugitish looking young black men ahead of us. They notice us, turn and walk in our direction. Instant brick shooting. Do we run? Do we plead for our lives? We decide to do the Canadian thing and just keep walking like nothing's going to happen. The gang reaches us after a few seconds, kind of does a half circle around the two of us. There is no escape, only robbery or death. What appears to be the leader makes contact. Yo, we got a question for you guys. We sheepishly reply oh yay. What's the plural form of penis? Penises. I think so. One of the other gang members blurts out see I told you man. As they all kind of laugh and thank us, tell us to have a good day. That is my only encounter with American street youth. So I was loitering with a couple friends in a little village style outdoor mall that's pretty popular in my city. Without warning, a massive group of people turned the corner onto the street and started walking down it together at a brisk pace. Not a flash mob, no one's shirtless, just a group of what had to be 300 or 400 people all walking together, and as they're walking the ones on the fringes of the train are calling out to pass us by to join in. There's no indication of where the group is going, or why, and no one is explaining themselves, or holding signs or anything. We're near the end of the street, watching more and more people latch onto the group out of sheer curiosity as it moves en masse towards us, and I said, FCK it, let's go. So we tacked onto the side of the train and followed it for 10 minutes or so into the heart of the mall, where there's a small park with a sculpture garden and a fountain. By that point there were way too many people to come close to fitting in the park. I would estimate at least a goddamn 1,000 packed together. The guy who was leading the parade approached this young woman who was sitting on one of the benches there, who was looking pretty bewildered at being surrounded by hundreds of strangers. Another young guy who was with him, sort of a ringleader type, turned to face us as a group and started to shout sing lean on me, with no idea what was going on. The rest of the group joined in until there were enough people to fill an auditorium all singing lean on me together to this complete stranger of a girl in the park. We got about a minute into the end of the second chorus before the guy's friend shushed us by raising both hands, and everyone went dead silent. Then the guy who was leading the parade got on one knee and proposed to the girl. She said yes. Everyone cheered and dispersed, more or less. It's one of my favorite memories, just because of the sense of being part of something greater, for no reason, except that we were all human. With no idea where we were going or why, we still joined the parade of people and sang to this guy's wife to be, because it was a good thing to do. TL. Doctor, I join a man's spontaneous flash mob to help terrify the woman he loves. A chick got arrested at a concert because she was blowing random guys. I don't think she was drunk or on drugs, but she would just go up to a guy and unzip his pants and pretty much suck his dick and spit out the load. A few minutes later, she'd go up to another guy until 40 minutes later 3 police officers came and arrested her after people were complaining. I was doing some window shopping on Upper Street in Islington, London about 4 years ago. It was the middle of summer, and I was just passing the time going from shop window to shop window. In looking at some boots and my attention is grabbed by the reflection of a young, long-haired blonde guy around 20 years old who all of a sudden looks physically stressed. I turn around, and has blocking the path of a old man. The old man is wearing some old-fashioned hat and has a grey beard and looking equally stressed about this kid not letting him pass. Him just about to tell the kid to stop being a dick and get out of the way. 2 or 3 other people have now stopped around us as it's a quite an odd looking scene, but all of a sudden the kid finds his voice. With tears in his eyes he says, "My name is Julian Flo. My parents are something and something Flo. Your name is I can't remember what he said. My parents are deaf. And when I was a kid, you babysat both me and my sister. You sexually abused us both for years and I never thought I would see your face again. There is no way in hell I'm letting you pass me this time. The old man insists the kid has the wrong guy. The small crowd start to circle them both. Some extra people have now joined after hearing the speech. I think some guy says to the old man, "If you're not who he says you are, just prove it. Take out a credit card or something." The old man refuses. I start to walk away from the crowd as one of the passerbys says, "Well, you're not going anywhere until the police turn up," and calmly holds the old guy by the arm. Saw a homeless man park his shopping cart between two parked cars on the side of the street. Then he walked out into the middle of the 4-lane street and took a shoot. What is it with homeless people belligerently shooting publicly? I've seen it a couple of times, and while I understand that eventually they probably just stop caring, admire my restraint and not saying giving a shoot and just go where they like, it still seems like a deliberately aggressive act. Is it a way of sticking it to everyone else? I will probably never know. Was outside smoking at a huge university by myself at about 4 AM when I see a deer running down the middle of the road. The noise of it running against the pavement was super bizarre. Next, a pickup truck comes barreling after it. The deer runs onto the campus lawns and the truck jumps the curb and follows it through the yards. I run after, got to see what this is about, and by the time I get to where the truck had eventually stopped, the deer was nowhere in sight. 4 guys were standing outside the truck yelling at each other. I sort of duck behind this bush area and run into a guy who was ducking there, doing the same thing as me. We kinda looked at each other, shrugged, and kept watching. These guys look university age, yelling about guns, fighting, shooting each other. The guy in the bushes with me starts to make moves to get closer to the action, and the 4 guys see him. They start to walk over him terrified, and they see me. They are marching over, confident, like they are going to murder me, and one guy, huge black guy, comes right up to me and picks me up in a hug and sort of just sways left to right with me in his arms, saying, "We were just kidding. We were just kidding." He set me back down, and the 4 of them walk calmly back to their truck and drive away. I really have no explanation for any of it. TL. Doctor, deer. Truck follows it through campus, confronted by huge black man, comforted by huge black man. I was driving out in the boonies and I saw a man towing a late 80s Honda with another late 80s Honda. Now this wasn't such an odd thing to see in the area. If you couldn't afford the tow truck, you just got a buddy, some rope and another car. As long as you always braked carefully and slowly, the guy behind could also brake, and the bumpers would only touch a bit. There would be some scratches, but nothing you couldn't live with. This man was doing this task solo though. Also not unheard of, but it just requires even more caution with braking. Brake slightly so the car behind you contacts the bumper, and then slowly apply the brakes even more. I'm not sure how long the man had been doing this for, but he was going about 45 miles per hour, so he must have been pretty confident in his abilities. However, when the deer leaped out into the road, his reflexes took over, and he slammed on the brakes, leaving the second car to slam into his first car. He was fine and missed the deer, but both cars were totaled. TL. Doctor, man rear ends himself with his other car. Every winter I go on a ski trip up north with my friend's family. One year on the drive up we drove into a whiteout blizzard while on the highway. Traffic went from 70 miles per hour to a near standstill in a few hundred feet. We were in the center of the 3 lanes and behind, and to the left of us a huge Suburban came hurtling down the road, the driver clearly not paying attention. He notices the traffic stopping at the last second, and in order to avoid slamming into the car ahead of him, TH guy has to swerve right across a lane in front of us, through the far right lane, and off the road. He drives off the road, down the ditch, and up the embankment in the other side. Then it got better. He made it to the top of the embankment, and then turned back down. Drove back through the ditch, back up the shoulder and burst through a snowbank back onto the road. He cut back across all 3 lanes of traffic, and into the spot he left from. When we passed by the car, his wife was bawling in the passenger seat, while he was laughing hysterically. I think I saw a fat chick fight club one time. I live in a pretty small town and we have a local grocery store. I was driving home one night about 11 and passed by said grocery store and noticed a bunch of the local country hicks had their trucks in a semicircle with the headlights on, and in the headlights were these two very obese women just going at it, like clothing ripped, and just beating each other. It was the strangest thing. A man was walking down the sidewalk like a chicken, strutting and flapping his bent arms. I ducked behind a building to avoid interacting and waited a while until I figured he was on his way. When I peeked around the corner of the building to make sure he was gone, there he was posed on one leg with one of his wings behind his head and the other tucked under his armpit. I really went the other way. It was a public enough setting that I wasn't in danger. I wonder now why he wasn't making clucking sounds. I was walking into Rite Aid to buy batteries. As I walk in, a homeless man slinks in behind me. We both walk to the right and he turns in the snack aisle. The batteries were perpendicular to the snacks. All of a sudden I hear multiple footsteps behind me jogging to where this homeless man is. I turn around and see the homeless man now shirtless ripping bags of peanuts and throwing them in the air, and two store employees trying to subdue him. As they finally struggle to pin him down, he begins to yell, "I regret nothing," just repeatedly yelling it as he is dragged out of the store. The most hilarious thing that I can recall is related to monkeys and a dog too. I was in India at that time, and back in my school, students living in the hostel dorms used to have the breakfast from the canteen during the winters and eat outside on a sunny day on set fixed chairs and tables. Most of us used to throw the yellow part of the boiled eggs on the ground, leaving a competition between monkeys, stray dogs and crows to grab those. Usually dogs used to dominate in this fight, and of course monkeys were badly pissed at this. One day, me with 3 of my friends was having breakfast and saw a group of 6 to 7 monkeys surrounding a sleeping dog. One monkey pushes the dog, and as soon as dog takes his head up, all the monkeys slap him one by one, taking 2 to 3 rounds. Before the dog could realize what happened, all monkeys were gone. And the expression on the dog was like, "What the hell just happened?" Whenever I think of that, still make me chuckle. During a bar fight, I saw one guy jump off a table and try a spinning roundhouse kick, only to miss by 4 feet and then get hit in the face by a plastic trash can by his opponent. He was then escorted out by the bouncer while the entire bar laughed at him. I could have sworn I was on one of those hidden camera shows one time. I went to the social security office to legally change my name after I got married. The guy next to me on the elevator practically ran to grab a number before I got there. I go in and sit down, and Mr. in a hurry sits next to me and tells me how he bought a suit at Jose Bank for a job interview in Vegas and someone stole them and his wallet with all his money and credit cards. He happened to see one of his suits on some guy on the street and decided that he should go beat the guy up. Obviously, the cops showed up and arrested him. Can you believe that? The guy with his suit and wallet got off scot-free, and now he is in jail overnight and he has to sleep on the dirty floor. I nod politely like, yeah, that happens to all of us. I'm rescued by the good-looking businessman sitting next to me. He is there with his sister, trying to make small talk. I ask him if he's there on his lunch break, as he appears to have just come from work. No, he says, I haven't been able to work for a year. They say I have problems, but they're wrong. They made me go to a place for a while, but they're just trying to steal my ideas. Huh. I write sometimes, but I know someone wants to steal what I write, so I burn it all. You have to burn it all. The conversation continues like this for 10 minutes until schizophrenic businessman stands up, looks around suspiciously, mumbles something, and walks away. Suit man looks at me like, can you believe these people? So ladies, think twice before you go to legally change your name. I saw a full wedding taking place inside a Borders bookstore. They even invited customers who happened to be in the store to attend. One time I showed everyone how the Ubering worked at a party. In Boston, midday in the summer in a crowded area, a rather large woman was mounted on top of a slightly less large man who was lying down on the ground face up. His pants were around his ankles. They were belligerently yelling at each other to no end. I was there when a couple police arrived and basically had no idea how to approach the situation. It was funny as hell. Me and my brother were sitting on a bench waiting for the subway in Boston. Then, out of nowhere, the little old Asian lady sitting next to us ripped one of the loudest freaking blasts from the AS trumpet that I have ever heard. So, I'm sure I've told this before, but anyway, Halloween weekend a few years ago, and I'm on my way to the bar with a few friends when we hear a lot of shouting. A group of skilless yobs, chavs, poor British youth thugs are trying to start something with a guy dressed as Spider-Man outside a chippy. All we can make out is that they think he should grow up, and they would like to physically make him agree, although less eloquently. They are, after all, simpletons. So the guy dressed as Spider-Man drops his chips, showing no sign of being upset by the ordeal, and puts his fists up. As he does this, about 10 different guys dressed as comic book characters jump out of the chippy and strike outlandish poses, ready to fight. And the skillers freaking shoot themselves. It's like one part of them doesn't know how to process what's going on, and the other part is screaming run. I mean, what would you do if you ended up in an accidental face-off against 11 superheroes? Laughs were had by all but the meaners. TL. Dr. the Avengers saved the day through a non-physical means. Late at night in a McDonald's in New York City, some man was angry because he did not get the right toppings on his burger. He threw a garbage can and started yelling at an employee who told him to back off before she went all Martin Luther King Jr. on his ass. He smeared the burger in her face, she said. That kind of stuff happens all the time there. My husband and I were in a mall in the DC area in the early 90s. At that time, Mary Lauretten was hyping Tyson chicken products near the mall food court. We took a look. Oh, hey, that's Mary Lauretten, and walked past. Out of a service door comes a man in a pretty shooty looking chicken costume being led by a girl in tie-dye and dreadlocks. Sensing epic misfortune about to unfold, I grab my husband and we follow them back to the food court. Sure enough, the chicken throws a water balloon or something filled with red liquid resembling might have actually been blood at Mary Lauretten and her crew as they are frying up delicious Tyson chicken in front of a crowd of soccer moms and their kids. The girl shouts something about Tyson being serial murderers, and in an instant the chicken is underneath a large security guard. As they are leading the chicken away, his girlfriend is shouting, "Don't hurt him. Stop choking the chicken." Watching fireworks from the side of Citadel Hill in Halifax in the late 70s, there was a pre-fireworks parachute jump. I forget what they were supposed to do on the way down. I distinctly remember watching as one of the little black dots just kept falling until he was hidden behind the trees. He was easily 2 miles away, so we didn't hear the thump, but it was clear what had happened. The fireworks went on as scheduled and the news that night confirmed that one of the parachutes had failed to op. Here's the kicker. The guy landed in a backyard in a pile of sods that were waiting to be put on the front lawn. He got up and walked away. Not in a straight line. I mean, he was obviously impacted, sorry for the pun. Couldn't resist by the event, but he was fine. True story. 2 white trash heroes, one guy, one girl driving down the highway in a small hatchback with a gigantic, homemade, doghouse on the hood. The doghouse was so heavy that the front tires were rubbing the inside of the wheel well, and so big that both of them were leaning out the windows so they could see ahead of them. They were also both smoking like there was no tomorrow. If only it had a camera or a video camera. You guys would have loved it. Shanghai Carifa, a chubby Chinese woman vs tall Chinese woman, yelling at each other till they start to fight. It's funny when their husbands, or whatever, try to stop them, because it's like 2 little monkeys trying to stop a fight between 2 tigers, lol. A few years ago, while visiting Washington DC, I saw a guy walk up to another man with a backpack. He pulled a bottle of Febreze out and sprayed it. The other man took a deep sniff and handed him a fat roll of cash and received a few more bottles of Febreze. Pretty sure I witnessed some crazy drug deal. I own time saw a dude overdose on heroin/crack/cocaine in a public restroom, a thing with a needle. Then see another guy walk in and start hitting him, telling him to get up, of which then a cop came in, told the guy to get the frick out, and when he didn't, arrested him. Turns out the dude took half the needles and was trying to keep it for himself. I was just standing there outside the bathrooms waiting for some friends when all this came down. When my friends arrived, it was all over and gone, and I was just confused as hell. During Halloween one year I decided to hit up Mill Avenue in Tempe, a strip of shops, bars, and clubs right next to ASU. There was this church group there reenacting the crucifixion of Jesus and generally calling out for people to repent and condemning the pagan holiday of Hallows Eve. This group was really into this. They had props with fake blood, Roman soldiers, a huge cross with a guy dressed as Jesus hanging from it, the works. What was so funny was this. There was this guy dressed as the devil standing in front of them with a clipboard. On the clipboard was contracts for your soul. He was buying them for $5. He had a line of people selling him their souls. The church group was in complete shock. I mean, they looked on the verge of tears every time someone signed their contract. They were begging and pleading with people to not do it. I stood and watched this for about an hour. It was absolutely priceless. That dude dressed as the devil was the greatest troll I have ever witnessed. Dude, I was wheezing from laughing so hard after reading that story, and I have great lungs. Craziest thing I ever saw. In New York City there was a bum just sitting on the edge of a fountain, eating his skimpy bum sandwich. Then out of nowhere a dude in a suit straight up dive tackles this bum into the fountain. Like the dude in the suit was completely horizontal through the air. Then two other guys in suits jump into the fountain and help the other suit guy kick the crap out of him. They all ran off and someone called the cops. Also that day, a guy dressed like a Goomba from the live action Mario movie fighting a crack horse. This crazy thing happened to me when I was in Japan. I was at an internet cafe, and as I was going to my seat, being the nosy guy that I am, I was peeking into the other people's stalls to see what they were browsing. Anyways, the stall right beside me, I just barely glanced at, and I didn't see the screen, but I noticed some motion. As I sat down in my own stall, my curiosity began to grow. So, I decided to go casually get a magazine from the stand and take a second look. As I was walking back with my magazine, I looked into the booth beside me and saw a 20-ish-year-old girl watching Lesbian Pronoun, with her legs open spread eagle masturbating as furiously as humanly possible. Classic Japan moment.